anyway, I talk a lot too, so I'll pass it along to our expert, Albert.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So, thank you, Bernard. And I wanted, before I introduce a little bit more of my story, I really want to keep in mind the picture that we're having today. So we are going from the very broad approach to more specific approach as we advance through the agenda. So we were talking about change in general in our districts, narrowing down to school, instructional change, and now we are arriving where the magic happens, the classroom. And actually, Karen said at the beginning of your conversation, you said students at the center, kids at the center. So that's what we're doing now. And so we've been talking a lot about change, preparing ourselves for our unknown future, which kept me thinking along the day. And I am an electrical engineer back in the days. And so I was at college. I finished my degree almost 10 years ago, 8 years ago. I was learning about the telephone, the wired telephone at college, 8 years ago. All that knowledge, of course, it's foundational. Of course, it's important to know where we're coming from. But to be an engineer, to be a problem solver, to be a human being these days is about being adaptive. So today we're going to focus on math, and we are going to do some activities, math activities, but we are not focusing on the content. I don't know if I would dare to say content is dead, as Michael was saying, but for sure content is not the only important thing. We have to go beyond that, so we will be targeting also processes, problem solving, and reasoning, and we will be doing that. And then, as Bernard was saying, productive struggle. I don't want you to feel ashamed if you don't know an answer. I don't want you to push your partners if you already know the answer. So let's have a culture as a classroom. We will be playing the game as I am the teacher and you are the student, and then we will switch to everyone is a teacher here, and we will be discussing about what happened, what can happen, and how you imagine yourself doing that with your teachers or with your kids. So my intervention a couple of sessions ago was about keeping in mind that the same we want with our students, for them to discover and to understand why, is the same that we want with teachers. So that is why this session, I think it's relevant for you guys, because even if you're not working with students that much anymore, you're working with some kind of learners, which are teachers, okay? Now, as Bernard was saying, I am a professor these days. My background is in high school teacher after becoming an engineer and hating being an engineer. So I moved to become high school teacher for a while, and then I joined Innovamat, and I joined the university. I was doing my PhD, and I started teaching at the university. And now my only contact with real young kids is when I visit the districts and I do modeling, and that's one of my favorite parts of the job, okay? So the name of the talk, and that was kind of a spoiler I did, it's about measuring success inside the classroom. Okay, what keys, if you enter a classroom as admins, as coaches, as teachers, when you do co-observation, co-teaching, when you have the time to reflect on what's going on in the classroom because you are not the one talking, and you can observe, what should you be observing to know that things are improving? That is the goal for today. Okay, and I wanted to start with this question. And I want you to reflect for a second. You can discuss it. What is a successful math class? You can change math for any other subject you want. What is a successful class? Think for a second and share any idea that you have. You can just drop words, sentences. Go. Engagement. So if you see engagement, there is some sort of success.
Students are collaborating with one another.
Collaboration. What else? Reasoning. So we are targeting the processes here, right? Reasoning is one of the processes. productive struggle. We're going to have a lot of productive struggle now, I hope, with the activities I brought you. Very good. What else?
Modeling.
What do you mean?
Modeling.
Modeling? Can you develop a little?
Like kids showing their work, how they did something while they can use manipulatives or actually drawing it themselves.
So, and I'm doing the revoicing here, like as a teacher, I cannot. So you mean not modeling, because I was like thinking, modeling as from the teacher perspective, like I do, you do, or modeling from the kid's perspective, like explaining myself and communicating, which is a process, again, in math. Process like communication, representation with manipulatives. I like that. What else?
Evidence of learning. Evidence of learning.
Okay, evidence of learning. So our goal, our success is learning, and we have to gather evidences and know that that is happening. And that is my favorite definition of assessment. It's not grading. That's one part of assessment, because we live in the system that we live in. But gathering evidence of learning, not only as a teacher, but also as a learner. I need to know if I am learning, right? So I need the evidence as well, as a learner. Very good. Anything else? Risk-taking. So going outside the comfort zone, I link that with productive struggle. Yes, very good. Application, we talked about that in the morning, right? So application, so knowing from what I observed, how can I apply that learning to another situation? Very good.
Student teaching.
Oh, student teaching, which is similar to modeling, right? Peer,
Coming up and
yeah, be my guest, and then explaining and see if that, and that is linked to the evidence of learning. If I can explain what I learned, it means that I learned it to some extent. Very good. So I think that all the ideas that you said are very good ideas when it comes to imagine success. Now imagine, and that is a very simple question with a very complex answer that you can ask your teachers to see very easily what do they think. Don't help them, just ask, what is success? If they say great marks, great marks on the state test, we have to work on that, right? Because that has to come, but as a consequence, not as a goal per se, okay? So it is a good question to see who has which ideas, right? Now, I really like, and Bernard was talking about this book before, Peter Liljedahl wrote this Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics. And in the prologue, in the foreword by Tracy Zager, who is a very good math professor and teacher, she says, success means getting more students thinking. Among all the things that you said, she chose one word. You Americans are very good at condensating information, putting words to things. I love that, and I'm learning a lot. Thinking condensates more or less everything that you said, right? In the math class or in any class for longer amounts of time. Now, how can we foster this thinking? That's what we are. And how can we assess that that thinking is happening in the class when we go and visit a class as admins or coaches?
Sorry, I'm going a little off rail, but what do you say to someone who tells you that we don't have time to think?
No, I don't have time to not think, right? So, because typically, no, I have to kill and drill because I'm going to the tests, right? So I want my students to practice. But then, that's your grade. When you talk to the next grade teacher, it goes, no, I had to go over fractions again, and again, and again. And then in high school, I've been a high school teacher, nobody remembered fractions. How much time did we spend on fractions, killing and drilling? Just to have to repeat it again and again and again. So, of course, if I am a teacher in my grade and I don't see the full picture, I can say, yeah, I don't have time to build conceptual understanding because that requires time. But if you see the full picture, which is our job here, we know that fractions, for instance, or any other concept that you want to think of, is getting repeated. And then we talk about learning loss. Kids come in September, and they seem brand new. They seem that they never went to school. It's like, what happens here? Well, that they were just memorizing. If I ask you to say the alphabet backwards, real fast, why is that difficult? Now, if I ask you to go through from 1,000 backward? Could you do that really easily? Yes, because we understood what is to count, but we did not understand the alphabet because there is nothing to understand, it's just memory. If you go to memory, at some point, memory will fail. It doesn't matter if it's in high school, if it's in college, at some point your memory will not be enough as the only source of learning. So we do not have time to do the opposite. We have time to do the thinking. And it takes time in the short term, but in the long time, it is a very good investment. Now, I wanted to go through some indicators, okay? So I created for you a bingo that you will see in a second as Carolina delivers it. Please do not read it yet. That's a teaching skill. If I deliver some manipulatives or some worksheet and I keep talking, people stop listening, right? So please don't read it yet, because we are going to explore first the 5 indicators that I came up with through these years of observing teachers and providing feedback. And now, as we discover them, you will see that those are the 5 columns of your bingo in your worksheet, okay? So first column, now you can read it, is problem-solving environment, okay? Now I want you to read the 4 indicators in the problem-solving column. And since I really want to go to the activities, so I won't devote a lot of time diving into every single box of this bingo. I just wanted you to read the column, see if we are aligned on what is to see a problem-solving environment in the classroom, and if you have any doubt, any question, or any feedback, I'll be happy to hear it. But if you just are okay with the column, we can move on to the next column. So let's read it real fast. First one, meaningful context. Second one, productive struggle. So one of your ideas. Third one, different strategies, variety of strategies. And fourth one, student-led inquiry, so student in the center. Through their interests, that of course you can guide as a teacher. If you can observe these in the classroom, that is a good indicator of the problem-solving environment. Now, what is a problem? You could be here forever, but what is a problem? When I ask this question to teachers, typically in PDs, in coaching sessions, typically teachers go with, Maria goes to the supermarket, she bought 5 apples, now she has 8 apples. How many apples did she have before buying any apple? Is that a problem? It is a word problem. I can give you that, but it is a problem. What is a problem? And again, going to Peter Liljedahl, he says, problem solving is what we do when we do not know what to do. If you know the steps, no matter that it's long, boring, if I ask you to add 2 5-digit numbers, would that be a problem for you? No, you know the steps. You probably go to the calculator and do it. So you know how to solve it. If you know the steps, even though you are too lazy to go through the steps, which I am typically lazy to go through, even though that is time-consuming, if you know the steps, it is not a problem. So that leads us to this truth. A problem depends on who is facing it, right? 2 + 2 is a problem? Typically teachers say no. Well, it depends. If you ask 2 + 2 to a K kid in September, it will be a problem. And he or she will need to gather some manipulatives, count as a strategy to solve the equation that you asked. So it's not about the context. It's not about the time that you are using. It's about, do you know the steps or you don't? And then where productive struggle arises is when you don't know the steps. We are trying to see that in the activities that we do later. Second indicator, conversation. Talking. Between students, not only student and teacher. So the 4 indicators within conversation is effective questioning. And that starts with you as a teacher. But then eventually, as Karen was saying, you want kids to be asking the questions. So you have to guide them through the process of creating rich questions. If you always ask predictable questions, kids will always ask themselves predictable questions. So try to be original with that, right? So effective questioning is the first one. Second one, collaborative discussion. discuss and argue. Third one, evidence-based argumentation. Why? I went the other day to a class. I had these second graders, and a kid says to me, no, because this is an even number. And I'm like, what is an even number? I was like, is this the math guy that was coming? Yes, I am. I need your reasons. Why is this an even number? And he was like, meh. And another kid says, an even number is 2, 4, 6. Oh yeah, those are examples of even numbers, but that's not what an even number is. And I kept asking, what is an even number? I pushed, what is an even number? Convince me that that is an even number. And the kid says, well, another kid, an even number is when you can make 2 groups. I go, oh, okay, give me 5 cubes. I take 5 cubes, and I do 3 and 2. Say, oh, 2 groups? 5 is an even number. Let's move on. And then what happens? Kids say, no, 5 is not an even number. I said, you said that if I could do 2 groups, that is an even number. And now you're telling me that that's wrong? Can we go again through the argumentation process? And then the kid says, I don't know. And another kid says, when the 2 groups are equal, oh, now we are modifying the definition of even numbers. Oh, so if you can make 2 groups of the same amount, that means that that number of cubes is even. There we got a definition of even numbers. It's not arising directly. It's after effective questioning and discussion and evidence-based argumentation. Proof that this is even. Give me some snap cubes and I will prove it to you, right? And the third one, precise vocabulary, right? Speaking properly using precise vocabulary. We will see that today as well. Now, the third column for you, engagement. And that was the first idea. When I asked for success, you said engagement. So that for me is a key indicator as well. Engagement comes with celebrating contributions. You're right, or you are wonderfully wrong, because upon that mistake we will build. That is perfect. Active participation. We know that if you go to a class and it looks like a library, something's not successful in that class. Third, share joy. Celebrate and share the joy for math. I think when we do the activities today, you will see that I'm very joyful doing the activities and doing math. And the last one, curiosity and discovery. If you can make the kids ask themselves for new learnings, that is much more successful than just go into the class and say, hey, today we're going to learn about the types of triangles. Why? Why do I need them? Can we do something to change that? Yes, we can. Fourth one. We already talked about that today as well. Assessment as a learning tool. Assessment is not grading, or not only grading. It's providing feedback, right? So looking to the evidences here, feedback for growth, self and peer assessment as a teacher and between students. Learning from mistakes. I make a mistake. I'm glad I made that mistake because I learned. I love Bernard's question about failure, that last question, right? Remember a failure. We remember failure a lot, and it's not that we can avoid failure. It's what we do with failure or with a mistake, right? So empowering teachers and kids to learn from mistakes and build upon is the most transformative thing you can do from an assessment perspective. And then devote time to reflect. Sometimes we are just hurrying because of the state test, because of the timing, and we do not devote time on what did we learn? What are we willing to learn, right? So devoting time to reflect. And moving to the last, and then we move to the activities, differentiated instruction. Keep in mind that you have different levels in the class, you know that, and that's the 2 last indicators are targeting the 2 biggest problems or challenges that I face as a teacher. How do I assess in a right way, in a empowering way? How do I differentiate instruction to include all my students? So here, accessible challenges. I don't know if you're familiar with the low floor, high ceiling concept. Low floor, every kid is invited, every kid can start thinking. High ceiling, every kid can go beyond and build upon that. Encouraging risk-taking. We were talking about that here as well, risk-taking. It looks like we prepared the session and we called each other yesterday to prepare this bingo. I'm glad that we are all on the same page because that makes my talk today easier. Then valuing diverse thinking. different strategies, different approaches. And last but not least, progression to abstraction. So I've seen over the years teachers that are really into manipulatives, and that is beautiful, but you need to know also when to move on. I don't want a 6th grader using snap cubes to count. That is not the moment anymore. I need to move on. So you have to be brave as a teacher and say, no, I'm sorry, today you are not using this anymore. And that is a traumatic moment for the kid, but you have to be positive about that moment. We are moving forward. You don't need this anymore. Okay? Beautiful. Are we okay with these indicators?
Yes.
Beautiful. Now, you can read the sentence.
You didn't ask an important question.
Ask it.
Are we forgetting any?
Oh, are we? For sure we could go beyond this. Do you think that we are missing like any key indicator here?
We have some math people in the room, so be brave.
I devoted lots of time to create this bingo. I challenged myself, and you will love that, Patrick, because I know what you're talking about later. I asked ChatGPT, am I forgetting some of them? And we worked together, and eventually I did what I wanted, but I had his or its feedback. Okay, so if you're missing any, it's okay. You can add more columns in the back, and that's okay. But what is important here is that during the activities, as you can read here, during the activities, find and write down an example of at least one cell in each column. I don't want you to just write an X, like, yes, we saw that. We're not doing that. I need the evidence. So I need you to recall the moment and write the moment. Oh, this was a joy in math. Okay, you write that down, the evidence of that very moment. And then you call out a bingo. If you can complete a full row, that's a superb bingo. Okay? And what do you get, apart from feel successful about this bingo? So we were thinking what could be a good prize and what could be useful for what we're talking about here. And we discussed, and I am offering to come, if you win, to your district and do a class observation, modeling, some extent to PD, if you need it, if you want. Okay, so if you win, if you are the first person to call a bingo and you can prove it, we will talk about that. Okay? Are we ready? Okay, so now I am asking you a very difficult task here because you have to split your brain. One part of your brain will be doing the tasks and being a student, and the other part of your brain will be looking at the bingo and trying to go through it and complete a full row or some combination of rows. You can split the tasks. So if you are coming from the same district, maybe one of you is focusing on some columns and the other one is focusing on other columns. I don't need a full bingo in just one paper. Just collaborate, think together, because that makes us much more powerful. Are we ready? So you have the dice that we delivered in a small bag, very cute. You have 4 dice, but you don't need all of them. We just need a couple. And this is how it starts. So we roll 2 dice and find the difference between them. Right? And now I'm asking you, what results are impossible? Can you give an example of an impossible result if we make the difference between 2 dice? I think we're not, I know that that's the way of proceeding with a real class. Raise your hand, wait for your turn. But unless it's like a long explanation, just let's move on. If you have an answer, just shout it. So impossible results. Anything over 5. That opens the door, the branch of inequations, but I am not going there. Anything over 5. Okay. Do we agree with him? Yes? You see, I am not validating his answer. You are validating his answer. We agree with Patrick. Which was? Anything less than -5. Okay. Can we have -2? Sure. Can you give me an example of the difference between two dice being -2?
Sure, if I look at the 2 first and then the 4 second, the difference between 2 and 4 is negative. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I am really interested in your process as you develop the argument. So don't be afraid. I mean, just go for it.
Take a subtraction process. So I rolled a 2 and a 4 actually, which is ironic that you said that as the example. So 2 minus 4 is -2.
But what's the difference between 2 and 4? It's -2? So is he wrong? No. Is he right? Well, it depends. And I don't care if he's wrong or right. What I care is the debate that we are having now. Of course, this debate cannot happen in early grades because they are not aware of negative numbers. Well, they are more aware than we think, but they are not structuring it or understanding that. So I was writing this statement in purpose, not the subtraction, but the difference. And if we talk about difference as the distance between two numbers, then we can like shut the door to negative numbers, which was my interest. But I am not killing that comment. I am not saying to him, oh, no way, -2, don't. That was, no, I am not doing that. I want to embrace him to the conversation and say, yeah, negative numbers would be right if we always place the same dice at the first position of the subtraction and then the second dice in the second position. Because when the second is bigger, we are opening the door to negative numbers. Are we okay going just to the difference? Can we do that? So if we keep in mind the difference, let's reconsider. Over 5, impossible. And under what is impossible? Zero? How do you get a 0? Can you put an example for us? Yes. Okay, anytime you roll the same two numbers, you get a 0. Can you go below that if we consider just the difference? No? Well, then we have a range. All the answers will be between 0 and 5. Those are the options. Very good. So 2.5 is an option, right? Or not? I don't know. You said that the range was from 0 to 5, and now I'm thinking that 2.5 might be an interesting option. Is that an option? Has to be a whole number. So we are improving our vocabulary here, right? Very good. So any number between 0 and 5, any whole number. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I really like asking what is wrong before, because that relieves pressure from us. We know that 6 is impossible. 6 would be a wrong answer. -1 would be a wrong answer. So now we are comfortable in the comfort zone between 0 and 5. And see, I am devoting time to understand the problem. I could just jump into the next question, which can you anticipate what's coming? Can anyone, or maybe you know the activity, or can you anticipate what comes next? What would be a natural question to ask after that? Well, we could go to, and that's a very beautiful branch, to the sum of two dice. And what answers could we get with the addition or multiplication? Or we could change the dice. Instead of 6 faces, we could explore another branch. 10 faces dice. How does that change the answer? But we're going here. There is a race between some athletes that have some numbers. And every time we roll the dice, we make the difference between the two dice. And then if the difference is 0, this athlete will go 1 position forward. If it's 3, this athlete would go 1 position forward. Do we get the situation here? We have a race. Now, I want you to think, and I won't give you a lot of time because I don't want you to go through the full strategy. I just need a feeling. So 10 seconds to write down who will win the race if you had to place a bet. I don't want you to think. I just want a feeling. Of course, you can think a little bit, but just the feeling. Who is winning? 9, 8, 6, Oh, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. I don't see you writing, and time is running. 3. Who is winning the race? 2, 1. And you have your conjecture. Do we have a conjecture? You think that somebody is winning. Okay, now let's reflect a little bit, and you cannot change yet your conjecture. Do you think that all of them have the same probabilities? You think it's no matter what, we will have 1 out of 6 times we will have number 0, 1 out of 6 times we will have number 1, 1 out of 6 times we will have number 2. Do you think that's the case? Because if that was the case, we don't need 2 dice. We just could roll a dice, and that's 1 out of 6. Does adding another dice and making the difference change the probability here? I don't know. So to have a 0, Nelly was saying that. To have a 0, we need a double. Is that more likely or less likely than having a 5 difference? How many doubles can we have, right? 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3. On the other hand, having a 5, how many times do we have a 5? Either 6 and 1 or 1 and 6. So it's not that all of them are the same, right? It doesn't look like. What we are going to do is, instead of analyzing, we're not analyzing yet, we are playing. So I want you to play in pairs, or alone if you prefer, roll the dice until an athlete reaches 10. So until you get a single difference 10 times. Let's roll the dice and let's see who wins. You will need to write that down. You are writing because I am asking who won, and you need to know. Okay, just in case, I saw that some people stopped at 10 rolls and saw who was the winner, but that's not what we are looking for. We are looking for that an athlete reaches the end line, which means 10 times. Maybe. And that leads us to a very interesting question. So thank you for that. Because now my question is, before jumping on who is the winner, which is what itches in your brain. You want to see who is the winner. But I'm going to hold, because that feeling is powerful as a teacher. Now I'm keeping the interest. What is the maximum amount of rolls until I have a winner? What's the worst case scenario? 46. Why? Everybody rolls 9 times. And the last roll would determine a winner. So it's 9 times 5 plus 55. You changed. I did not change your answer. I just asked the question, and you reconsidered, which is perfect. So you're changing your number to 55. Do we agree with him? Is it 55, the maximum amount of rolls? So if we have the worst luck ever, and every athlete reaches 9, that's 9 times 6. We're going to the branch of multiplicative thinking, times tables. 9 times 6, and then plus 1. Right? And that's 55. That's the maximum amount. I hope that you didn't need 55, okay? So, now, who was the winner in this table? We didn't finish, so we need more time. It's okay. I'm going back. Don't worry. Who won here? We didn't finish. Okay, so your athletes are taking time. I like that. Did you do it?
Nope.
Okay, don't worry. Not finished? Not finished. It's okay. Number 2. Number 1. 2. 1. Is the same race or 2 races? 1 and 1. Did you do it? Not there? Okay. Now, the ones that already finished, I want you to think, was my conjecture right according to what I observed in my race? If the answer is yes, congratulations. Why? If the answer is no, congratulations. Why? I don't care if it's right or wrong, the conjecture. I need the why. Is it right or wrong? So I am trying that my students really understand that I prefer a wrong conjecture with a why than a right conjecture without a why. Do you feel what I am saying? I prefer a wrong conjecture with a why it was wrong than a right conjecture without knowing why it was right. Just I guessed. Right? So, do we have winners? Yay. Now, I am changing as we speak. I am changing the way of, because I couldn't keep track as I'm talking in English. Can you imagine that? In Spanish, I am much worse. I talk. In English, I need to keep the slow pace. So instead of asking you one by one, I am asking you all together. Who has 0 as a winner? Boo, 0 sucks. Who has 1 as a winner? I want to see your hands. 1, 2, 3. Oh, but that's 2 winners, or you did 2 races? No. Okay, so 1 arm per race. Can we do that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times won number 1. How many 2s? 1, 2, 3. Wasn't it 1? Oh, you did different races. Oh, I was like, oh, this race was very tight. Okay, so photo finish, both going to the line. So, number 3. Nobody. Number 4. Nobody. Number 5. Nobody. Okay, you? Number 5 was the winner? Very good. So, now, but that's just 1 vote for number 5. So now, after observing, if you had to bet on who will be the winner, who will be the winner most of the times? It seems like from our evidence, I don't know why, but it seems from our experimentation that 1 has more chances to win. Who made this conjecture? Who thought it was 1 who was going to be the winner? 1 person? Okay. Now we will focus in the right conjecture and see why the conjecture was right. But I want to hear before a wrong conjecture. Who missed the conjecture? Who thought it would be 3? That's a typical answer to say. Who thought it would be 2 or 4 or 3? In the middle. So that's how our brain, and probability really messes with our brain. We tend to think as a Gaussian variable, so that everything condensates in the middle. So as we know that 0 is unlikely because we need a double, and 5 is unlikely because we need 6 and 1, we tend to think, well, then the most conservative answer I can give is 3 or 4, in the middle, in between, which is a beautiful guess with a reason. I think it will be in the middle because they kind of compensate each other. Was that your idea? Anyone wants to share why your conjecture was? You didn't have much time, so it was kind of a feeling. But do you want to share why your conjecture was that one? Was I right with your thinking of going to the middle? Okay, then why did you think it was 1?
I thought there's always more possibility of having a difference of 1 than 2, 3, and 4, because numbers are there so close to each other. And always you have more pairs with difference of 1 than the other numbers.
Okay, I feel you. Then how would you, and I know you see it, that is the typical case of a student who sees the thing, and then how do you manage that, right? So I'm asking you, can you prove that feeling in a way that everyone follows that feeling or understands that feeling? Or it was just, do you have a reason, a mathematical reason? It's the next slide, so don't feel like the pressure. Because somehow you have that intuition, but many times our talented students do not know how to explain. I did it in my brain. Well, why? You have to push that, right? Do you know what happened in your brain to know why it was 1?
It's 1 because 1 to 2, because getting a difference of 3 is you have less numbers,
So you are trying to see, like we started thinking between the doubles and then 1 and 6, and you're trying to see how it condensates around 1.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. That is a good reason. What can we do to see what are the odds? With simple probability experiments, the best thing to analyze them is just go through the numbers, right? So we did the experimentation, we did the conjecture, we proved that maybe we were wrong, and now we want to know why. Now the next slide is about this why, and if we had enough time and this was like a full class on this activity, now I would ask you to do the double entry table, comparing all the differences to see all the options and see what's more likely. We're not doing that because I did it yesterday for you. So this is the difference between the two dice, right? So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Now any box in this table, any cell, is the difference, right? So here I have 3 and 2, and that is 1. Now, out of 36 options, and we are opening the branch of fractions here, which one is more likely? 1 is more likely. What do you observe here from a geometrical perspective? It's symmetric, isn't it? Why is it symmetric? Is the same having 3 and 1 than 1 and 3? Is it the same having 5 and 2 than 2 and 5? Because we are finding difference indeed. Very good. So since we are finding difference and we do not care what dice goes first, we're just calculating the distance between the two numbers, we have to see a symmetry there. Actually, doing only half of the job would have been enough, and then doubling it. Right? Now, these kind of experiments really allows us to open lots of doors with a context that is kind of gamified. If my students finish early this activity, I could ask them, what happens, as you said, what happens if we ask for addition? How this changes the problem? Instead of making the difference, we change that for adding. How does this change? What are the options? What is more likely? What if it was multiplication? A times B. One dice times the other one. So another good activity is asking the kids to go in groups, and you do the addition, you do the subtraction, you do the multiplication, and we explore everything if the kids are older. Right? Okay, this was a fun activity with dice, with a context that kids really engage. But we have to move on to another activity. Now, I really like this activity because it targets language, okay? And we call it geometric dictation, okay? And it's a very good activity that companies do as team building, but in here it has a very good mathematical goal, okay? With this setting, we're not in a classroom and it's not easy to move the tables, so I will need some collaboration from you guys. I need you to go in pairs. One person will be facing the screen. The other person will be behind, looking to that wall. Okay? Once we are ready, I will say go, and I will show a picture. And the person who is facing the screen will have to describe what he or she is seeing, and the other one is going to draw, and we will see cooperation. By the way, I do not want you, if you are the ones, so tip for the ones looking at the screen, I do not want you to go like this and say, no, what are you doing to the left? No, that is not happening. We are just trusting blindly our partners, and we are not checking their work. Okay? Are we ready? Decide who wants to look at the screen and who wants to draw. And get ready. 3. Oh, so what is going to happen in this group or in that group?
They're going to see each other's facial.
Yes, and that's very bad. Because you will feel the temptation to correct her as you see the drawing. So it's very important that we place ourselves in the position that you cannot see what's going on. I know that this space is not the best one.
Can't be next to each other.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, we go. when we finish, we do not check. We do not turn around. Time. I don't mind, you didn't finish. It's okay. Time's up, you can now turn around. Time's up, don't worry. The intention was not to check. Oh God, that was the first input I hear. Many things happening here. I could devote, again, a full class to this. And the first thing you can see from my end was people, and nobody's looking at you, but you're like, Okay, very funny thing. Second thing that was going on here. So how did you feel? Was it struggling? Was it hard? Now, you can see some of them are pretty close, some of them are far away, I don't care. And a very interesting thing about this activity is that when you do it in time, first, kids begin to understand that sometimes it's not that we are having a confrontation because you wanted to misinterpret what I was saying, but because that's what happens. That's reality. Both of us, any group, both of you had the very best of intentions on communicating, and, well, the result is, most of the times, far away from expectations, okay? And that really transforms the kids in the long term of understanding that it's nobody's fault. It's how communication works, right? So that's a good learning for the kids. Secondly, I did this activity over a full year, once per month, more or less. At the end, 3rd, 4th graders were coordinating the plane. Divide the cell in 5. In position 1, 6, you have a vertex of the triangle. 3rd graders. You're creating the need for grids, for instance, or for coordinate systems. Instead of just, who said turn the paper 90 degrees or horizontally? I heard it there. Who did not, right? Who said that? Who was drawing in an horizontal? Nobody, right? You just jump into the shapes. That's a learning. If I did this activity again, you would start there. Who used the word? Now we're going to check. I know you're expecting that. Okay. How was it? Very good. Very good. Okay, now we could devote the full lesson on sharing and deciding as a class which one is better. We could come together, we don't have time for that, but we could come together and decide not which one is worse, we don't want to go there, but which one is better, and what did you do to do it that way, to do it that good? Was it an instinct? Was it a good communication between you? Was it just randomness? I don't know. Let's check that, right? So, you want to say something? No?
No, I just found it super interesting. Since I was I haven't done it. And I felt like that if you were systematically coming up with the same kind of questions for each figure, you should be able to do it perfect. It's just a matter of, I was telling myself, what are all these questions so that I don't forget everyone? And then, every new figure, let's just remind myself that I need to ask the same ones.
It is a beautiful activity to work on that, on systematic thinking with drawings. And it's geometry. Who used circle? Raise your hands. I want to do quick polls. Who heard or used the word circle? The word circle. Who used triangle? Who used upside down triangle? Is this upside down? I don't know what does upside down triangle mean, but we all understand. Or we said a triangle that it's laying on its vertex. I don't know. Who said equilateral triangle? Very good. Who said pentagon? Regular pentagon? 5-sided shape? Who said trapezoid? Quadrilateral? Parallelogram? Parallelogram. This is a parallelogram. Who used half moon, crescent, the shrinking moon? Is that how you say it in English? Yes? Waning. Oh, waning. Okay. Very good. So this is a very good activity when you start geometry to see what knowledge is there. Because it's not the same understanding what is a trapezoid than saying this is a trapezoid. You feel the difference? From the kid's perspective, it's not, if I ask which one is the trapezoid, 90% of my kids will know which one is the trapezoid. If I ask them to describe this picture, 10% of them only will know and say that is a trapezoid. It's very different knowing than using. And that goes to application, as we were talking this morning, right? It's very different apply to just know. Okay, this activity could go forever. You could develop it as an activity to improve communication and then move around the class and explain what, or ask what happened, have the discussion. We do not have the time. I just wanted to do a last activity and then we finish. But nobody called out a bingo, and I am starting to believe that this is not a class about, so maybe we just engaged in the math and we forgot about the bingo, which is okay. I have a free day. I don't have to come and do PD. But just keep in mind that for the last activity. I saw some shy people have the bingo already, but they didn't share. And they said, we have it since the first activity. Okay, very good, very good. And if you call out the bingo, you will win the PD. But now, let's go to the last activity I want to share with you guys. So, this is the last one. And then we move on to the last session today. You can use 10 numbers from 1 to 10. Is that clear? Only once. So if you use one number, you cannot use it again. Second rule, 5 operations. Plus, minus, times, and divided by. And a wildcard that you can transform into any other operation. So, in other words, you can use every basic operation once, but one of them twice. Is that clear? To create 5 equations like this, number, operation, number, equals answer. For instance, 2 plus 3 equals 5, right? The numbers in pink are the ones up there. The operation in green is one of those with the wildcard. And then, my question for you is, how would you get these 5 answers? How would you get these 5 numbers using these numbers only once, this wildcard, these operations only once with the wildcard, and creating sentences like this one? For instance, 56. How do you create 56?
54 plus 2.
What was that?
54 plus 2.
Okay, 54 plus 2. How do you create 54 with these numbers? We cannot create 54. 54 plus 2, I agree that it's 56. But we don't have 54 as a pink number. It's not an option.
It's like 1-digit number.
Or 10, which has 2 digits, but yes. So one of these numbers is the pink one. That's why it is very important to ask, because I did this activity the other day, and if you jump directly into it, people interpret different things, and we don't want that in this case. We just want everything is. So for 56, can you come up with an operation? 8 times 7, let's check. 8 is a number of this list, yes, and we cross it because we used it. 7 is a number of this list, yes, and we cross it because we used it. Times is an operation that we can use, yes, so we cross it, and it's 56, I agree. We got one. Can you get the other ones? If you finish, you raise your hand, and I will come and check and give you another challenge.
That's all for that discussion. A double list. Just in case one doesn't.
Just in case. Let me ask this question to the class. Do we need to use all the numbers? How many numbers will we use if we create 5 equations? 10 numbers, right? Are we using all of them? Yes. You answered that. About having or not having pencils, there is a debate here. If you have pencils, which is good, but then sometimes you miss the previous mistakes. True. I really like to see what happens. So you don't need to cross everything. You just, what we would need is more paper. Yeah. Yes, I agree. So, did you finish?
Yes.
Very good. 2, 2, 2,
Oh, that's good.
and 9.
Yeah.
Go for it. For choose and a 9. Okay, class? Nice. So I am doing a very bad teaching thing, which is cut the activity when everyone is engaged, but we have an agenda. We are a little late, but I don't want to stay here much more than we expected. And I am looking forward to hear Patrick after myself. So just to close, to summarize, about this activity in particular, was it a challenge? Yes. Were we engaged in a discussion? Yes. Were we doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, thinking deeply about the patterns and the properties of operations? But it's much better than just giving you a list of do 100 addition, do 100 of subtraction, right? We call this productive practice because we are producing answers while practicing. Opposed to, reproductive practice, which is just reproducing the same and the same and the same again and again and again. Productive practice activities like this one, or even the one with the 2 dice in which we were practicing subtraction, are great because they are a much better context than Maria goes to the market and buys 20 watermelons. No kid goes to the supermarket, no kid buys 20 watermelons. So that is not a context. A game, a challenge is a context for the kids. So when we hear about context, don't think about real world so fast, because we tend to think in our real world, not kids' real world, which is more what Neely was saying about what they do in their everyday life with their families, and most of it is playing games. Okay? Beautiful. Now, nobody called out a bingo, maybe because you're too shy, maybe because I hope you were so engaged in math, in the math activity, which is beautiful, that's my favorite part. But I hope this tool really allows you to go into a class and check. You cannot find them all. It's like with the puzzle that we had before with Michael's presentation. We're not trying to find all of them overnight. But if you start seeing more and more of these when you visit a class, when you talk to a teacher, change is happening. And that is the only thing that we are fostering here. Change towards thinking and enjoy thinking. Okay? So we can have time for questions, but since I will be here afterwards, we can talk. I know that maybe you have questions, but since we don't have much time, I'll skip the Q&A and just go to the key takeaways. Support teachers, devote time to these key indicators, celebrate learning with them, with the teachers and with the students, and keep growing, keep growing, keep growing. Thank you for coming today. We're not finished yet, but I am really, really, really thankful for you that you stayed all the day discussing and thinking. And now we have a close look to the future, and I will stop talking because I love talking more than thinking. Thank you.